Okay, so the state of Victoria where I live has gone into another hard lockdown for 7 days, so it seems about the right time to talk about horror movies. And this time it's going to be 1960s horror movies, 1960s hidden gem horror movies to be more specific. I'm looking at 5 of them, and one of them has been suggested by subscribers, and the others I found by digging around the place, so let's get started. David F. Friedman, who produced this one, started his career as a movie projectionist before moving on to making nudie cuties in the 50s and 60s. In 1967, along with Dan Sonny, who came from a family of exploitation filmmakers, Friedman made She Freak, an unauthorized remake of Todd Browning's 1932 horror classic Freaks. A diner waitress called Jade, played by Claire Brennan, wants better things than being sleazed on by her boss and delivering grilled cheese sandwiches to sweaty guys. When the opportunity arises, she takes a job with the travelling carnival, doing pretty much the same kind of work. She does, however, hook up with a hunky rigger called Blackie, but sets her sights on the carnival freak show owner Steve, played by Bill McKinney, and marries him even though she detests the freaks. Married life doesn't suit Jade. Her husband would rather play late-night poker with his buddies than spend time with her, so she restarts her affair with Blackie, which leads to tragedy and the ending that you know from seeing the original movie. But She Freak has its own charms. To fill out the running time, we get a lot of documentary footage of carnival riggers assembling and disassembling the rides and concessions of West Coast shows in Bakersfield, California. I like seeing how people dressed and how the 1960s rides and stalls were put together, and how many cigarettes carnies can smoke as a Ferris wheel goes around. I remember carnivals when I was a kid, where if you asked nicely, the guy would let you give lucerne to an elephant. I even once spent a day escorting people through the haunted house at a carnival. I didn't get paid, but I got to go through the haunted house about 20 times. After that, I saw a brutal fist fight between 2 carnies, and that career path didn't seem quite as attractive after that. I also saw She Freak on late-night TV when I was a kid. Never having seen Freaks as the original, the absurd ending really worked for me. It was the kind of movie that you talked about in the school playground on Monday mornings. She Freak is a Z-grade movie, but entertaining grindhouse movies often are. I saw this crazy Japanese horror movie for the first time this week. I'd heard the title, but I went in on a cold, and this insane genre mashup, which blends together airline drama, vampires, and an alien invasion, really works. An airline pilot gets a radio message about a mad bomber being on board, and this is used as a device to introduce us to the crew and the passengers, which include a corrupt politician, a businessman who bribes a politician with money and his wife. We get his wife. A political assassin who has just killed the British ambassador to Japan. An American war widow and the air crew. Also, the sky has turned bright red and the plane is buzzed by a couple of UFOs. This is all in the first 10 minutes. Things go bum up and the plane crashes in a deserted area near the landing site of one of the UFOs. A silver pus alien takes over the assassin through a strangely suggestive slit in his forehead, and the monster begins sucking the blood out of the passengers one by one. Meanwhile, having no food and water, the passengers are going feral, fuel is leaking out of the wing tanks of the plane, and everyone's secrets get revealed. This is a crazy movie. Going in on a cold, I wasn't able to predict anything that happened from 1 minute to the next. The acting is really frenetic, the budget was pretty low, but I like the fact that they put a plane in a quarry for the location shots. Without doing any spoilers on this, the ending of the movie takes things up to 11. It's a nihilistic masterpiece of weird 60s cinema. It was released in 2012 as part of a Criterion box set, so you know it's going to be entertaining. And if you haven't seen Gokyo Body Snatcher from Hell, you should watch it. In 1960s London, there was a dodgy movie producer called Tony Tenser, who ran a company called Tygon Films, which produced and distributed movies in the UK in the 60s and 70s. It was kind of third in the cult movie race behind Amicus and Hammer. In 1968, Tygon gave us Curse of the Crimson Altar, which has some virtues and a lot of weirdness to it. The main virtues are Boris Karloff in the last movie in which he appeared, which was released before his death, playing an expert in the occult who gets all the best lines in the movie.
The devil is not exactly noted for his sense of humour, and he never sleeps. Over by my favourite corner, Basil.
He also gets hit by a firework. The second virtue is Christopher Lee in obeying aristocrat mode as the owner of a large country home in the village of Greymarsh, foreshadowing his Lord Summerisle in The Wicker Man. Morley hosts a festival that reenacts the burning of a witch back in the 1600s. An antique dealer called Bob Manning, a generic chain-smoking protagonist played by Mark Eden, comes to Crackstead Lodge to look for his missing brother. He finds a groovy party going on with body painting and cocktails and people in cars chasing young women in leotards. It's the kind of activity that a 50-year-old movie producer thought young people were doing in the swinging 60s. Bob hooks up with Eve Morley, played by Virginia Wetherell, as he investigates what happened to his brother. We also get Michael Gough playing a hypnotised butler with an acquired brain injury. I kid you not. The audience already knows what happened to the brother because we see a kinky occult ceremony at the start of the film, where Barbara Steele in green makeup plays the burned witch. A woman with pasties whips a sacrificial victim who is entirely differently lit than her, while the missing brother looks on. This is a dog's breakfast of a mashup of other better horror movies that's only lifted by Christopher Lee and Boris Karloff, but I like it for no real reason that I can think of. For me, it's cinematic comfort food, a typical mid-60s horror flick where the filmmakers threw everything they could think of at the screen on a budget. And for that reason, it's a bit of fun. This one's an adaptation of a story by August Derleth based on an incomplete story by H.P. Lovecraft, originally offered to Ken Russell to direct. He decided not to, so TV director David Green did, and it's a real hidden gem. Newlyweds Mike and Susanna Kelton, played by Gig Young and Carol Lindley, return to Susanna's childhood home on Dunwich Island, off the coast of Massachusetts. Actually, it was filmed in Norfolk in the UK. On the island, they meet Susanna's horny, nasty cousin Ethan, played by a kinetic Oliver Reed, and her Aunt Agatha, played by Flora Robson, who lives in a lighthouse and has an eagle for a pet. Susanna's house is in a bad state of disrepair, and she remembers little of her life there. And there's something living in a locked room in the old mill attached to the house, too. There are some plot beats here that Sam Peckinpah may have borrowed for Straw Dogs, and the movie is surprisingly good. Young and Lindley are good as a couple and they have a believable chemistry. Reed is menacing and dangerous and really over the top in the best possible way, but Flora Robson steals the movie.
How does a chicken know when a fox is hiding behind a bush, ready to spring? A chicken can't see the fox, can't smell the fox, but it knows the fox is there. Now, a chicken is a stupid creature, Mr. Kelton. All it does is run around in circles a little and cluck a lot. You linger around looking for proof, and you'll end up like the chicken, with your neck tore out.
Her Agatha is a powerful creation. She's a windswept matriarch, compassionate, but she holds the island's secrets to herself. And her acting in this film lifts the Shuttered Room to something special. The ultimate resolution to the mystery in the movie surprised me, but I love the fact that it did. And thanks to everyone who recommended this movie. If you haven't seen it, you really should. It's a classic that nobody knows about. Here's another carnival-based horror movie because carnivals are innately creepy. Torture Garden features Burgess Meredith as Dr. Diavolo, rocking the penguin cigarette holder and giving us the kind of weird vocal cadences that Orson Welles was known for. Diavolo shows an audience of thrill seekers what lies in their future. This is the second of Amicus's portmanteau horror films after Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, and it gives us 4 stories within the frame story that are all based on stories by Robert Bloch, who also wrote the screenplay. Robert Bloch, as you know, was the guy who gave us Psycho. Although it's not as well known as Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, I like Torture Garden. It's got something cool about it. The stories are pretty good. In the first one, Michael Bryant is ensorcelled by an evil telepathic cat demon after he kinda sorta kills his uncle, played by Maurice Denham. This one also has Niall McGuinness playing the local doctor, which is cool for 2 reasons. Niall McGuinness played Julian Carswell in Curse of the Demon, and secondly, he was a real general practitioner doctor in between his acting gigs at the time, so he was playing what he was in real life. In the second story, we get Beverly Adams as an aspiring actress who finds out that everything we ever suspected about Hollywood stars is true. The third and most absurd of the stories gives us Barbara Ewing and John Standing as a couple who are in a love triangle with a sentient and insanely jealous grand piano. The actors and the direction and the script make this mad idea work, but it is totally bloody insane. Finally, we get Jack Palance and Peter Cushing as a rival pair of bibliophiles who are also total stands for the work and the life of Edgar Allan Poe. It's not difficult to see where this one is going, and Jack Palance at the time had a real but strangely applied talent for playing unhinged characters. He was often a better actor than most people realise. You should see him in a movie called The Big Knife if you don't think so. It's also fun to see Cushing's subtler acting here as a man with an enormous and burdensome secret who is getting progressively more drunk. The frame story ends in a cute way. The most valuable player in this movie is Burgess Meredith. His gear changes and costume changes as Dr. Diablo are a lot of fun to watch. We also get Hammer stalwart Michael Ripper as another one of the participants in the frame story, and this time he gets a bit more to do than usual. You should check out Tortured Garden. Thank you very much for watching. As always, please consider subscribing, liking and leaving a comment. Let me know what your 1960s horror movie hidden gems are. You can also support the channel at patreon.com/paleocinema. And so, as I face my second of 7 days of lockdown, I'm going to watch some good movies, some bad movies, all kinds of movies, including horror movies. And I'll catch you next time.